am recording it. And we have the immense pleasure to have these two, hi Judy, these two rock star and upcoming rock star, right? Tom Kirmidjian and Parisa Mustafavi giving us their personal story about how coming from faraway lands shaped their scientific career. I, myself, an immigrant, it's a theme dear to my heart. It's really shaped how I think and do science. So I'm looking forward to hear from them, their personal story. I am going to share my screen because I just want to start really with a very quick introduction what SHIELD is about. It's a new NASA Drive Center in phase 1. Hopefully we will go for phase 2. And I'm the PI and John Richardson is a program manager. We have a whole website that you can go check out all our activities that I wrote down here. And the vision for SHIELD is to develop a predictive global model for the heliosphere or outer heliosphere for some. SHIELD stands for solar wind with hydrogen ion charge exchange and large scale dynamics. I have to thank my students for coming up with this acronym. And we are using all sorts of computer modelings, both global scales, small scales, lots of observations for all the main spacecraft involved in taking data from the outer heliosphere to reach this goal. And just to, again, put in big perspective, we are the only known habitable astrosphere. Of course, as you know, there are many, many exoplanets being discovered. And I think it would be a major coincidence that we are the only habitable. But so far, we know we are the only habitable. And part of the goal of SHIELD is to try to understand what makes this astrosphere habitable. So we are also trying to reach the goal to try to understand the filtering of galactic cosmic rays and the effect on habitability. I want to advertise the next SHIELD webinar. It will be, we just moved this webinar to be earlier because of Tom, but our webinar is going to be 2 p.m. Eastern on Friday, February 12th. And we are going to hear from these two major stars, Nancy Crooker and Frank Bagenal, about how discoveries are made. And I do like this theme, finding the needle in the haystack, because I know, at least hearing from Nancy, how she does science in not the usual way. So I'm looking forward to hearing from her and Ms. Fran how discoveries are made. If you want to know more about the outreach in SHIELD, just go to our website and please contact us. We have an email now that is shieldoutreach@bu.edu. We had a lot of students giving testimonials about their career, and this SHIELD webinar came from some of the themes that these young researchers and students talked about, being gender fluid, being immigrant, and being a minority, how the challenges that they face to be in STEM fields. So if you want to be part of it, please reach out to us. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing and let Tom take the lead. And at the end, let me just, one thing in logistic, at the end, we will take questions. So if you already are thinking about questions, put it in the chat, and myself or Rachel Ward is going to collect them, and we will open for questions at the end. Okay, Tom.
Okay, let me share my screen here. I thought I would start with a small lesson in geography. this is the island of Chios, Greece. As you can see here, the little place in the Aegean. And when you blow it up, this is what it's like. This is where I grew up in Vrontados. As you can see, it's directly opposite to Turkey, to Asia Minor. And I want to show you a couple of things from, oops, uh-oh, you would not click. Oh, there, okay, this is not the, so that's my grandfather's house, which was rebuilt over the years, and it's about 200 yards from the beach here. And this is the beach where I go jogging in the morning. This is the water, and what you see here are the pebbles in the bottom. So it's very clear. And this is a taverna that we go and eat now and then. So what was I doing there when I was growing up in high school? I will show you my buddies with these homemade rockets. And you say, what were you doing with homemade rockets? It was kind of a passage into adulthood of sorts. But on Easter night, when Christ is risen from the dead, as you all know, at midnight, we would use these rockets to shoot at another church as the bells were ringing and all that. And that's me. My buddies and I made about a couple hundred rockets. And to give you an idea of what it looks like, this is the church that we're aiming at the dome in particular. And I'll play you a short video that somebody sent me from the United States who happened to be there at the time. And oops, the sound is, it's about 3 minutes, but I think you'll enjoy it. So this is the
Tom,
church.
if you want the sound, you have to share with sound.
Okay, should I turn it down?
I can't hear the sound. I'm just mean you have to share it with sound.
Okay, can you hear me though?
Yes, yes, we can.
Okay, so that's how you fire these rockets. It's solid state rockets. And the intent is to hit the dome of the other church. And this is the only video I have, and you can see what happens. It's mayhem. And then there is the counteroffensive from the other side. And you can see that they come towards the church that I was at. And eventually they try to hit the bell tower that also has a clock here. I don't know if you can see it, the bell tower. And needless to say, the clock on the bell tower rarely works the next day. So that's how I learned about propulsion when I was a kid. And here, okay, I don't know if you can hear me now. I'll increase the sound. Can you hear me?
Oh, we can hear you.
Okay.
It's good. All good.
So here's a map, but from 433 BC.
Wow.
With Chios. And what it shows is all the various Greek states and also the Greek colonies in southern Italy, in what's called Magna Graecia these days, in North Africa, in the Black Sea, in Cyprus. And Chios was a very important center for commerce. But not only that. I took this Google map to show you the situation. And you see where Chios is. Here's Asia Minor, which is now Turkey. But it was also the hotbed of early pre-Socratic philosophy. You say, what do you mean by that? Well, okay, here are some names that I'm sure you're familiar with. Homer, he was supposed to have lived in Chios and maybe born there, you know, the Odyssey and the Iliad and all of that. Down farther to the south, there is the island of Samos. You've heard of Pythagoras and his mathematics school. Aristarchus of Samos was the person who first enunciated the heliocentric system long before Copernicus. And of course, the priests of those days chased him out of the island and he took refuge in Alexandria. But up here, across the Ionia, this was where all these Greek colonies were, Thales, who was thought to be the first scientific philosopher, he was the person that said, look, we don't need the gods to explain physical phenomena. We can actually learn about the laws of nature and then we can explain it. Anaxagoras, he explained and predicted eclipses. Heraclitus, you know, the only thing is the moving tide. Leucippus, who was the teacher of Democritus, of the atomic theory. So the sort of the hotbed, as I said, of philosophy and ideas of the pre-Socratic philosophers, a lot of these people, well, in the right time, did go to Athens, and that gave rise to Socrates and Plato and what have you. So, but you might say, what about today? Well, about 20% of the global merchant marine fleet, which is 200 million tons, is owned by Greek nationals. And 60% of that is owned by people from Chios. So about 12% of world trade. So when you look at your jacket that says made in China, chances are 1 in 8 or 9 that it was brought from China to the United States with a ship owned by Chians. So much for the history. Unfortunately, I'm not associated with any of these families that have all these ships. So that's the disadvantage. Off I went, as soon as I finished high school, to the University of Minnesota. You might say, why Minnesota? Well, because my dad was an immigrant in the States, and from my mother's side, had an uncle and an aunt, and that's where I had to go to school, the Institute of Technology. I graduated with a Bachelor of Physics in 1961. It was engineering physics. And there I met Jim Van Allen when he came to give a talk about the Van Allen belts. And he invited me to go to Iowa. So in 1961, I went to Iowa City, Iowa. This is the Physics and Astronomy building at the University of Iowa, where we had our labs. And I ended up getting an MS in 63, at least in 65, and I stayed as assistant professor for a couple of years. But that's where I got my break. You know, Van Allen, after I did my master's, called me to his office and he said, hey, how would you like to build a detector that would be the first mission to Mars? And I said, what do I have to do? He says, all you have to do is find a way to separate electrons from protons so that we know what the counters are counting. And for you to understand that, you have to appreciate that back in the late 50s and early 60s, the principal particle detector was a Geiger counter. And a Geiger counter will respond to protons, electrons, X-rays, gamma rays, you name it. And you have to really do some gymnastics to decide, when you see a few counts per second, where those came from and what kind of particle it was. So I thought of Van Allen. I didn't think I knew how to do that. He says, oh, you learn, you know. And by the way, he said, we're launching in November of 64. So this was February of 63. The long and short of it is that I ended up building a detector, and here we are in Iowa City, from Iowa City to JPL on July 15, 1965. That's Van Allen, that's me. And you see, we're looking at something and we're looking at data coming from Mariner 4 flyby on Mars. Now you think that, of course, we're looking at a TV monitor. So what we're actually looking at is a strip shot recorder that is moving along, and there is a pen on the recorder, and every time we got a bit from the spacecraft, the pen would go bing, down, and then up, and then down again. So at the terrific rate of 8 1/3 bits per second. And that was the total spacecraft rate, by the way. The rate for our instrument was, I think, about half a bit per second. Just to give you some idea how things have changed. This is one of our instruments. This one we built that went to the moon in 1966. You see Van Allen here when we were about to ship the instrument. You see Tom Armstrong, one of my best friends and buddies, and yours truly. Then we were building instruments right and left, particle instruments. Mariner 3 and 4, there was a Mariner 3, I'm not going to get into that, that went to Mars, then Injun 4, and all this was done 63 to 64 in about 18 months. Explorer 33 and 35 to the moon, 65, 66. Mariner 5 to Venus. Argo 4 on Earth orbiter, 66 to 67. Injun 5, 1967, 68. So 8 instruments built and flown in 5 years. I don't think you can imagine doing one of those in that time, this day and age. And we started as graduate students. I was the first one. And then Tom Armstrong was helping, and so was Ted Fritz. Both my dearest friends, and both have passed. But it shows you how things have changed. And in 1968, I went to a place called APL at Johns Hopkins. I'm showing you a picture here. We proposed an instrument to go on a mission which eventually turned out to be Voyager. This is a picture from the first science steering group at JPL around 1972. And I'll show you here. The mission was initially only to explore Jupiter and Saturn. That was MJ 77. It became Voyager a couple of days before we launched. I just will point out a few people here. LECP, yours truly. Herb Bridge of MIT with a plasma instrument. Robbie Vaught of the Cosmic Ray Instrument from Caltech. Ed Stone was the project scientist. Norm Ness with a magnetometer. I won't point out some of the other team leaders and PIs, but most of the other people were from JPL management and NASA headquarters. So that was the big thing. Now, fast forward, SSG at the APL now, when we got together and we were debating the crossing of the heliopause. And you can see that the PIs that I showed you before, incidentally, in the previous picture, you didn't see Fred Scarf or Dan Garnett. And that was because the plasma wave instrument had not yet been selected. And we had quite a fight to get that on the spacecraft. So as you can see, some of us are getting a bit old, Dan Garnett, myself, Ed Stone, Matt. You see some new people like this lady here, who's a member of the team. But she also, Susie Dodds, she's the program manager. And we pay a lot of attention to her because you know about the golden rule, you know, she who has the gold makes the rule, and she is the one who takes care of the money. I thought I would show you this. That's LECP. This is and it's hanging here. That is presently in the process of flying by. So I'll stop. Let me stop that. And I will simply show you here that this is the 8 sectors that we get directional data from. There's a little device that rotates the detectors, the instruments. It was designed to go about 300,000 steps until we got to Saturn. It was going to be a 4-year mission. And of course, now we're 43 years, and we are into 8 million steps and still going. And you all know how terrifically important this directional data has been for the Voyager mission. I'll move on. One thing that I'm very proud of, and that many of you youngsters don't know about, is that in the early 80s, there were no decadal surveys except one for astronomy that the National Academy had done. And at that time, Tom Donahue was the chairman of what was then called the Space Science Board, not the Space Studies Board. And he asked me to join as chairman of the Committee of Solar and Space Physics, that's what heliophysics was called then, to do essentially a decadal study for heliophysics. And you can see some of the names here you recognize: Baker, Fisk, Gleckler, Jack Harvey, Jacobi, Margie Giverson, John Leibacher, Andy Nagy, Dennis Papadopoulos, Ed Smith, late Ed Smith, and so on. So this became the first decadal study of heliophysics, and I want to show you the bottom line. The bottom line was that we did one of these plots, which have since become famous, where you lay out the funding profile for a given mission as a function of time, and you work against the ceiling, and you try to fit everything under the ceiling. At that time, our ceiling was $400 million a year for heliophysics. Unfortunately, it hasn't gone a hell of a lot further since then. But I just want to point to 2 things on this particular plot. One is solar probe. Look at the times. We had started, we thought the program was supposed to start in 1991, and it would launch by 95, and then data analysis. And solar polar orbiter. So this was the first time that both of these programs were actually placed in a decadal survey of the Academy, which NASA then began to slowly, obviously, implement. Fast forward now to July 14, 2015. I don't know if you recognize this gentleman. Alan Stern, who's the PI of New Horizons, Chuck Walden, the NASA administrator, and yours truly. And you see here 9 fingers, and that had to do with the fact that, of course, all of us still believe that Pluto is a planet, and it was exactly 50 years before when Mariner 4 went by Mars. And in 2015, here we had New Horizons going by Pluto. So it was quite an event, and I was very happy to have been at both ends of that. We had this chart that we made some years ago about the work that we had done at APL from the sun to Pluto and beyond. And so I used to call that from fire to ice. And now it's through with a solar probe in orbit. Finally, I wanted to show you the speakers from a symposium that took place about 2 years ago. The perpetrator of that was Ralph McNutt and Barry Mock, and they organized it. You see my good friends who came and spoke, and he entitled it SMK 50 Years at APL and 80 Years on Planet Earth. And these were all the other friends that were there, including your previous speakers, by the way, in the webinar, Margie, and I don't know if you saw Nikki back here. And finally, what am I doing here in Athens when I'm here? I'm a member of the Academy here. This is the Academy building. I have an office in Athens where whenever I come, and I work with some students and colleagues and collaborators on mostly Voyager and Cassini and other data. Thank you very much. That concludes my presentation.
Tom, wonderful. What a stellar career. Tom, let's hear from Parisa, and then I want to also hear from you after. We can talk about some of the questions I sent you guys in terms of how the background, your background shaped the way you look at science. I can tell you what I think your background shaped your science, but I would like to hear from you. But maybe we should transition for Parisa, and then I will ask some of these questions. Parisa, you want to share?
Yeah.
Okay, and then we can have.
Can you see it now?
Yes.
All right. Okay, thank you so much, Mira, for inviting me to give this talk. So today I want to talk about my life. My life won't be as interesting as Tom. I didn't build any rockets, and I haven't been a PI of any mission yet, but let's see. So, so let me start. So I want to start from my family. I have been born in a very lovely family in Iran, and my parents don't have any college education. Okay. My parents don't have any college education. My dad is a businessman, and when he was young, he wanted to go to college, but his parents didn't let him because they were all in business and they wanted him to be a businessman too. He's very smart and especially very good at math. He can multiply two three-digit numbers, two three-digit numbers without any calculator in just a few seconds. And my mom is a housewife. She's a really good artist, and she can make art at master level just by searching on the internet. I mean, without going to any classes or anything. And these are some of the handmade rugs that she has woven, and for us, for her children. I have 2 sisters and 1 brother, and all of them are in art fields. And I guess I'm the only odd one in physics. As a little girl, I had parents who hugely supported me. They spent lots of time, energy, and money on their children's education. And they tried very best to make us very interested in reading. For example, I remember at the time when I was a kid, the price of each book was about $1. And they told us, if you read a book, come and give us the summary of the book, and then we give you $2. So first dollar for you to buy the next book, and the next dollar for you as your reward. And this was the best reward for someone like me who loved reading books. I normally used my reward portion to buy books as well. And we had more than hundreds of books. I was strongly attracted to math and physics, and I became more interested in physics since high school. And then my dream became working for NASA one day. And let me just add something here. When I was in high school, our teacher talked about some of the NASA mission, like Voyager. And so then this became my dream, working for NASA and working with this kind of missions. Now I want to talk about how I entered the world of plasma. Let me first tell you how does the university work in Iran. And there is an entrance exam to enter the universities in Iran. So based on the results exam, each student can choose the field of study and the university. My first choice was physics because I wanted to get to my dream. So, and I loved physics as well, so I chose that one. And I got accepted in the newly established academic field of plasma physics, and we were the first undergrad students in this field. And it might be interesting for you to know that women made up more than 60% of all universities' student body in Iran, especially in science. And here is the photo of our class in plasma lab. And that's me, that's our professor, and these are my classmates. And you can see that more than 77% of our class were girls. Let me just add something here. When you look at the position of powers, you see much smaller number of female. And so you see this number of female here, but where do they go? And I should mention that this is not the only problem. I mean, it's not just in Iran, it's everywhere. Most of the countries, they have this problem. As an example, the number of female faculty that we had in our department was much smaller than male faculties. And we had a female professor in our department, and she always talked about these gender barriers. And she talked that all the difficulties she had in front of her to get to the position that she had. And she was not treated very nicely. So I didn't want my gender be a barrier to my future. And talking about gender barrier, let me give you a story that happened just few months ago. About 3 months ago, I won the Fred Scarf Award, which is the best dissertation award. And when the news came out, it became very famous in Iran, and I got many emails and messages from there. And they put the news out on many websites and pages. And so I got a friend request on Instagram from the primary school I went to. And they sent me a message that they are very excited, they are very happy, and they feel very proud. They want to interview me and show their girl so they can inspire them. So not that my page was private, they were not able to see anything on my page at first. So when I accepted that, so I was excited. Yeah, I would do anything for them if I can inspire them, of course. So I accepted that, and then they were able to see my photos. There is nothing special over there. It's just me with my family like now, I mean, without a scarf, without hijab. So, so I got a very weird message from them saying that, so we didn't know that you don't have a job, so we cannot introduce you as a role model to our girls. And so we don't want them to be like you, I mean, putting their hijab aside. So this made me really sad, not for myself, but for those girls, that because of this kind of censorship, they cannot see many people similar to them. And for me, in my situation, it was really hard to picture myself working for NASA, since I didn't have a really good model. Actually, I didn't have a role model working at NASA at that time, like me. And so I only hope that this kind of limitation wouldn't be a barrier for those girls and they can reach whatever they want. And just let me tell you that this is not the case everywhere in all the schools. This school was very strict at the time when I went to, and I thought now they are better, but it seems now, no, they are still strict about this kind of religion things. Okay, now let me go back in time to the time I was 20. I got married to the love of my life when I was 20 years old. We started our life very happily, and then he was he at the time he just finished his bachelor degree. After I finished my bachelor, we moved to Yazd, because Yazd is the city in the middle of Iran. We moved to Yazd because of my husband's job. And as you all know, every life has ups and downs. And my life was on the downside at the time, and I had some problems in my life. So I was not very optimistic about the future, but I tried to focus on my on the entrance exam for master degree. And so my goal was plasma engineering in Shaibesh University in Tehran. And the acceptance rate was very low because they only accepted 5 students per year. But I studied hard, and the day that I found out that I got accepted, I had fixed feelings. I was super excited to go to the best school in plasma in Iran, and also, on the other hand, I was not single. I was married. I should think about my life, my marriage as well. Because we were living in Yazd and I had to commute to Tehran. It was 8 hours to Tehran and 8 hours to come back every week. And my classes were not in just one day, it was whole week. So it meant that I could just come back to Yazd during weekend, which was just one day. And so, so other than my husband and my parents were very excited and happy for me, everyone else tried to convince me that this is not a good idea. You shouldn't go to Tehran, you should just stay home. And because I was female, and they believe that female priority should be taking care of their family. And if it's, on the other hand, if it was my husband, he had more freedom to do that. But I had a goal, and I had also a great support from my husband. So I went to Tehran to the Shaibesh University. Okay, now I want to talk about PhD and how we entered the UAH. The next step was preparing for PhD in the US, but that wasn't easy. We had a long way in front of us. All boys has to go to a mandatory military service in Iran for 2 years, and before they can leave the country. So my husband, I tried hard to convince him, so he accepted that, and he quit his job and he went to the service, and at the same time he started studying the master degree. And we rented a very small apartment in Tehran, and it was a very tough 2-year period in my life. I was working part-time, but our income was less than half of the rent of that apartment, that tiny apartment that we had. And we started with selling with our savings first, and then selling our belongings like my jewelry and home appliance and everything we had. And I remember selling all we had and spending in an almost empty apartment during last couple of months that we were in Iran. And there were lots of moments that we thought, does it worth it or not? But then we think that we shouldn't give up now, because every day we are one step closer to our dream. Then finally, we both got PhD position at University of Alabama in Huntsville, and we started our PhD in the friendly environment at UAH. And Dr. Gary Zank, my advisor, he was very supportive and caring, and he helped me to start my research, and he gave me freedom to choose whatever I want to work on. And then my husband and I celebrated every small achievement we had, and one came after another. And getting the NASA fellowship was the best thing that happened to me during those days. And it helped me to see the results of our hard work. And after that, publishing papers, collaborating, and so on. Then I went to Princeton University for 1 year, and then finding a dream job at APL. And here at APL, I'm working on NASA project and NASA missions, like Parker Solar Probe, Interstellar Probe, and I also work on Voyager during my PhD. And these kind of things were like dream coming true for me. And the next, I want to talk about, Merav asked one question: what do you lose by moving to another country? Because of the problems between Iran and the US, we only got a single entry visa. So we knew as we leave Iran, we may not see our family and friends for at least 5 to 6 years. So we missed some relatives and friends during those years, and we didn't have chance to go to their funerals. Also, I didn't have chance to go to see my dad when he had a heart surgery, and he was in a hospital. He was in bed for more than 3 months. And also we missed lots of good moments, happy moments, like my sister's wedding and many more. So I would say that I think moving to another country means losing a lot of time with family and friends. The next question Merav asked was, which advantages being an immigrant from Iran offered you in space physics? Iran is a very educated society. It has excellent universities, schools, and teachers. And as I mentioned earlier, both of my master's and bachelor are in plasma physics. We had a variety of different courses, different labs related to plasma. And when Gary saw the list of courses that I took in Iran, he was surprised that we have all these courses in Iran. And when I took some of the courses at UAH, they were not difficult for me because I had a good background. And however, I want to add something here, the difficulties we all Iranians have in space plasma. As you may know, that Iran's name is between some of the few sanctioned countries. And therefore, I was not allowed to be involved in many projects, apply for some scholarships, give a talk at some places, go to some labs, and also even sit at the same table with some people who wanted to talk during a lunch at a conference, and many, many more. So these are the things that we Iranians have the problem in space physics. And we got our green card last year, so the restrictions are not the same as before. But I still can see the reaction of some people when they find out my nationality. And this is the last slide that I have. So this journey wasn't easy for me at all, but I didn't give up and I kept trying. And I still keep trying these days when I feel tired of workload with many projects and with a 1-year-old son, working from home and all these things. I remember those hard days that I had, and so I could reach where I'm today now. I do my best to be strong, and fortunately I have a really good husband. He's very supportive. He supports me whatever I say, whatever I want to do, and he takes care of our child very well. And when I have a meeting or anything. So, and also I want to add that the first year in the US was very difficult. It is still difficult, but not the same as before, because we have many friends in Huntsville, New Jersey, and Maryland. And similar what Nikki said last time about APL, I want to say that APL has been like a family to us as well. And they are very caring and supportive. And I mean, especially last year when I gave, and they many friends like Elena Porvornikova, Slava Merkin, Romina Nikukar, and many more. I can go for 5 minutes. They offered help, sent food, flowers, and all this that we really appreciated that when we didn't have any family member here. So that was the summary of my life. Thank you. Thanks for listening.
Thank you so much, Parisa. What a powerful, powerful story. I loved hearing from you and from Tom. I'm so glad I get this chance to do this webinars. This is one of the highlights of this center. I keep telling myself, even if you don't get to phase 2, just phase 1 was such a delight. Anyway, I wanted just to ask you guys really a quick question. I know I sent you, and Parisa touched on a lot of them, but I just want to hear also from Tom on that, or maybe from Parisa, and then open to more questions. Please put in the chat so we can call on you guys. I know for myself, coming from Israel and Brazil, that the fact that I was an immigrant and coming to a different country made me do science in a different way. Maybe, you know, translation between cultures and languages made me tackle scientific problems in a different way. I see, Tom, a lot of your explanations in a very universal way. There is a history behind it. So I feel Greece behind you when you present a new idea. And I'm very sensitive to it. It's just, you know, when I mentor students, depending on the culture, you can tell if they think inside the box, outside the box. I think when you're an immigrant, you come with your luggages. I was like Parisa. I knew I couldn't come back for other reasons. But so, you know, it's give a different perspective. So I don't know, Tom, Parisa, you want to elaborate on that before we open to more questions?
Since you said I didn't address too many of the questions you sent me, I actually looked at them and I thought about them. So maybe we can talk about it.
Yeah. That's wonderful.
One of those was, which language do you dream? You said.
Yes, yeah.
and it turns out that I dream in English because I think in English, and that transition only took about a year for me. But that was probably because I was 18 years old when I came to the States, and but the way that Greece might have affected my science had to do with, as I pointed out, growing in the kind of environment where the teachers beat into your head about Homer and Thales and Euclid and Pythagoras, and sort of they ask you the implicit question, you know, with all of these people, what is it that you can do?
You feel the weight of the history behind you.
and of course, and one of the things that I learned early on is the inductive reasoning, you know, bottoms up as opposed to deductive. and because that was the kind of thing we were taught with Plato and Aristotle and Pythagoras, and needless to say, I was attracted to the inductive reasoning, what we now call the scientific method. So, of course, I'm an experimentalist, and sometimes, as you know, Merav, I drive my theorist friends crazy.
I love
because
it.
I really stick with the data, and I feel strongly that in our field, essentially, the data drives theory and not the other way around, at least not for the foreseeable future. So that was one way that I was affected by my culture. And I really didn't miss Greece a whole lot because maybe Parisa didn't have that advantage, but in the States, there are lots of people of Greek descent, and they have churches and social organizations and so on and so forth. So you can sort of almost never be too far away from what's going on in the Greek world and in Greece. And it's not so you don't miss it so much. I have to say I was totally kind of absorbed in American culture because perhaps I was young at the time. And so I'm fine. That's about all I can say about your question.
Yeah, yeah. Parisa, you want to add on that, or we can open to other questions?
I think I touched that in my
Yeah,
slide. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So, yeah.
Folks, if you want to ask a question, you can unmute yourself or raise your hand or chat. I see my previous student that she's also a rock star now, Elena. Another, you know, I'm very, very sensitive to this, to students that came from different countries. I had in my own, I don't think Paris and Tom had it, but when I arrived, when I was 29, I could only speak 2 hours of English. Then I had to have silence. It was just too much to absorb the new language.
Hello, everybody. I wanted to, if it is possible, add a comment.
Yes.
If it is possible. I have been, I've been friends with Parisa and Vahid for like more than 5 years since I came here to the UAH. I just wanted to add a comment. I couldn't stop myself to say this, that Parisa, as I mentioned in the chat, you're going to reach the stars. At least for me, you are a role model. I am so grateful for having such a great role model in front of me. And I'm sure that you are so close to your dreams, and you are going to be the role model not only for me, you are already the role model for a lot of people in Iran and in the US, Iranian, American, from all the nationalities, but you're gonna reach the stars. Just keep going. We support you, and just that's it. I just want to add this. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kevin. You're so nice.
Fantastic. Yeah.
I see the question from Heather. Heather, what you want to say it, or you want me to respond?
Yeah, I was just wondering if in the early days, you being either the only or just one of a few immigrants, you know, was that a problem, or did it just not matter?
Can I just one comment for the broader audience that are not used to space physics? I know in physics, there was only immigrants, but I think space physics was not so much. There's a different field. Yeah, go ahead, Tom.
Not necessarily so. I mean, you know, some of you all don't know about the early days, but I mean, there were people like Guido Pizzella from Italy, who did some of the original cosmic ray work in the original Explorer satellites. There were, Anke Thijssen, and there was people from the UK who came, people from Norway, Bernd Malem. There were quite a few that were immigrants that many of them have passed on. And so I didn't feel quite out of it. But you know, Heather, I actually, because I was an undergraduate in the States, by the time I became a graduate student, I was pretty much assimilated, if you like, with the other graduate students. So I really didn't feel very much alone. I mean, at that time, it was a terrific atmosphere, especially in Iowa City, where everybody was working day and night for their next instrument, because when they flew it, they knew they were going to measure something totally new in a different environment and write the papers, and it was going to be a discovery. And it was very different.
And this is one of the reasons, Tom, I wanted to bring both of you, because I think there was a major change that was from the time of Van Allen, that there was a flood of discoveries, and from coming to now.
And you could actually design and build and fly your instrument and write your thesis.
Right.
Whereas,
right.
As I was trying to point out, you know, we built so many instruments, so few years, and here these days, as we all know, we have to spend the first 5 years sort of planning. And
so for Parisa and Tom, you also avoided one of my other questions. So let me ask you now, on how do you think on avoiding, I'm just being jokey, but bringing the different background into your science, or on being a leader or a scientist? How do you invoke, even though, Tom, you said you came young, you assimilated, I know you keep ties in Greece very closely. You're half of the year there, and Parisa, as you describe, how do you think their background played in the way you do the science, or you become a leader?
Why don't Parisa goes first?
I see Elena Jr.
So how my background,
yeah.
how my background helped me, or?
Yeah, or how does it play?
So I would say, I don't know if it's advantage or it's not an advantage. I didn't get everything very easily, and I worked very hard. And this is the case right now for some of the people that I know in Iran. So I guess we all know that we have to work hard. So, and I never give up my dreams. And so this is the thing that I think that's
you brought into, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I think I have a similar response, because we come from a background where you're expected to do well. I mean, I was the first person in my family to go to college. Mm-hmm. Failure is not an option.
It's not an option, right?
You really better do it, or you'll be in opprobrium for forever. And that gives you a lot of incentive. And as Parisa said, you work as hard as you can, and until you get the things that
it's a one ticket, it's a one-way ticket, so you better succeed. Absolutely. We are almost reaching the top of the hour. I see Elena and Fan put stuff in the chat. Do you want to jump in and ask a question, both? You want to go first, Elena, and then Fan?
Yeah, Parisa and Tom, thank you very much for sharing your stories. It's really amazing. Parisa, my question is there a reason or a driver behind such a high number of female students in science in Iran? Because in Moscow, when where I studied, we had only 10% of women in math department.
So in my family, relative, and whoever I know, there were now not such a thing that girls cannot do that. So we all knew that we can do what we can study math, we can study physics, and there is no difference between us and boys. And so but when we wanted to go to school, most of boys wanted to go to engineering because there were more jobs for them after that. So then, but girls, when they loved math or science, okay, they said, okay, we don't have to provide money for the family. So it's not our job. I mean, not the priority job. So we go to our what we like. And boys, because they wanted to get job better, they went to the engineering. And also, yeah, there were many jobs for engineers, but since not many, there is not many different research about like applied research about, for example, space physics over there. So it's mostly theoretical work and simulation. I think that's the reason. I think so. That's the reason. I don't know. Maybe any other Iranian have anything to add?
I also, sorry, I would just
go ahead.
like to touch a little bit on that. And I think I'm also from Iran. Thanks, Parisa and Tom, for the great work. And I wanted to add, like, one of the things that we in Iran we do not have like lots of activities like the kids here, like playing sports, like playing so much instruments, and doing math was our fun, you know, just like we would sit like in the school, like, or like coming out of school, working on the math. That was all the fun that we could have. And I think that was just kind of our culture too. We would just like in family gathering, uncles bring like a math question, and then everyone was trying to solve that. So I think that is part of our culture too.
Yeah, that's true.
So interesting. Wow, I love it.
Yeah.
Any, Fran, we are going to hear from Fran next webinar. Do you want to comment? You had something in the chat about 50% of the PhDs in physics were born outside of US.
Yes, it's very interesting to look at the statistics, and the American Institute of Physics puts out numbers on the demographics. And I've been looking at demographics in different countries, and it's really interesting to see things like the per capita production of physics degrees and percentage of women. And what's interesting is that it tends to be inversely proportional to indices of development. And so countries like the United States, where there are lots of opportunities and lots of interests in topics other than science that are maybe easier to do than science, you'll find that there's not much less interest in doing science, and the per capita productions are lower, and the percentage of women is lower. So I think there's some interesting things to look at here and study, and they get us thinking. But Tom and Parisa, I really appreciate your personal stories, because they are probably even more important than looking at the numbers. Thank you.
Thank you so much for both of you. We are looking forward to seeing more stuff coming out from you, Parisa, and more stories from you, Tom, more discoveries. And the fun continues, right? Okay, so we're looking for the next webinar, as I said, will be Nancy Crooker and Fran Bagenal talking about how discoveries are made. And thank you so much for attending. Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much for inviting us.
Yes.
And thanks everybody for attending.
I love these stories. It's so
Wonderful.
precious. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye, folks.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you all.